Welcome to Upleveling, the podcast dedicated to building better leaders, smarter systems, and bigger results.
We are at the start of a brand new year and we have big goals to achieve. So now is the perfect time to talk about bringing structure and clarity into your business. And if you're feeling busy, overwhelmed, or like you're doing a lot, but the needle's not really moving, this episode is for you. Here's the thing. Early on, effort can take you pretty far. But once you start to add more revenue, more team members, more decisions, all of that effort is going to start to break down. And what you're really going to need is a business operating system. A system where you're no longer running on memory, Slack messages, random to-dos on post-it notes all over your office. I mean, I do love a good post-it note, but we do know that it can get kind of chaotic. So what we want to do is create growth that can scale. We need a system that's going to create structure, clarity, and cadence. For us at Aligned CPA, that operating system is EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So what is EOS? Let's hop into it. First, EOS comes from the book Traction by Gino Wickman. You guys know I love giving you book recommendations. I really should have like an Amazon affiliate link by now. But if you want to grow a business that doesn't rely entirely on you, this book is required reading. And it's really not about creating more complexity or endless meetings. I think the meetings part is the biggest pushback. The reason that that is usually a pushback is that your meetings have not been effective. They're probably not ran by agenda, they're just not organized. And so this is a system that's going to allow you to run your business in a repeatable way. Even if you're just a team of one right now, this still could be for you. I ran my business on EOS before I had any employees, or at least when I had one employee. And so this can grow with any size company. So let me show you exactly what EOS looks like inside of Aligned CPA, really in practice, not just in theory. I'm going to pull back the curtains and show you what that looks like. The foundation really is vision, rocks, execution. So I know at the beginning of the year, we get so excited about vision. That's really goal setting. And we get this done on paper and it looks great, but we forget to set the rocks and then we don't do the execution, which is why most people fail. So let's talk about what that process looks like and how you can be more successful. Every year we start with a clear vision, and my entire team knows what that vision is. That is our 1 year goals, 3 year goals, and 10 year goals. Now, I'm pretty transparent with my team. You don't have to be. This can be something that you set and you don't share everything with your team. But my team knows our revenue goals, our, number of client goals, our number of employee goals. They see a lot of that. And again, like I said, you don't have to be that transparent. You can kind of make those decisions of who sees what in your business. But the important part is you do have something and you have it on paper, because this is really going to answer where are we going and what does winning actually look like. One of my favorite sayings is strategy is what you say no to, because that's how you're going to get to where you want to go. But if you haven't documented where you want to go, it's really hard to say no to things or yes to things, knowing that you're saying yes to the right things. So this is going to help us see where we're going. What does winning look like? We're going to take that annual vision and we're going to bring that down into quarterly focus, or what EOS calls is rocks. And the reason is our annual goals are just too big to execute daily. And sometimes they seem intimidating. We may write them down and we don't ever come back to them. And that's where people fail. So we're going to take that annual goal, we're going to break it into a chunk. That's our quarterly rock. Our rock is the most important things this quarter. This is where we start to win because we are now focused. You can't focus on that full year. That's just too much stuff, and then you get overwhelmed. But what you can focus on is what are the most important things that have to happen this quarter. We're also going to start to blend some of our goal-based and issue-based planning. We talked about this in the past couple of episodes, and our vision at Aligned includes both of those. Your goals-based is things like amount of revenue, number of new clients. For us, it's number of new payroll clients as well. And then issues-based planning are things like where's our processes breaking down? What systems do we need to refine or redo? What do we need to change in our hiring process? What are all the issues we need to fix this quarter? We're not just picking one, we're blending the two to determine what needs to be done this quarter. Because if we don't start to solve some of the issues, the goals really don't matter because the issues aren't going away. They're just going to keep popping up and getting in the way. And now we've just burned a lot of energy. So we've got our vision. Now we've got our quarterly rocks, and we're going to bring that down into a scorecard. This is how we're going to know if we are winning. Your scorecard's going to answer one question. Are we on track? Are we off track right now? So for Aligned CPA, we've got a couple different scorecards. We have a firm level scorecard, so that's at the top. That's what our leadership team sees. And then we have department scorecards. So those are things like our scorecard for our production department. And then we have a scorecard for our sales and marketing department. And then we have individual employee scorecards. And so that is obviously at an individual level because different employees and different roles are going to have different scorecards. So let's walk through like an example of that so you can get a picture of this. Let's say if our annual goal is to bring on 52 new clients, we may have a quarterly rock of 13 new clients this quarter. And that metric is going to live on our scorecard. And every week we're going to track how many new clients did we bring on. So as each week goes through or passes, are we close? Are we on track to the 13 for the quarter? That is going to be reviewed weekly. Now there's some scorecards, some metrics that are reviewed monthly. For us, that's things like what was our monthly revenue. So we don't track that on a weekly basis, we track it on a monthly basis. And then what's super important to emphasize is ownership. Every rock has one owner. And hint, it's not always me because my goal is for me to be not responsible for everything in the business. And the way to do that is to make someone else responsible for that metric on the scorecard. And here's why it matters that there is only one owner, because you're going to have clear ownership and no confusion. Everyone knows what they're responsible for. And leadership, or even the CEO, is not always going to be the bottleneck. Because guess what? Most of the times I am the bottleneck. So it is even more imperative that I'm not responsible for these scorecard items. And let me also just add, just because the person is responsible for the scorecard metric does not mean that they're responsible for the action that is getting done. So, for instance, Owen runs our production department. He is responsible for the metrics of that department, but he doesn't actually do the work. And so he is not responsible for doing the metric. He's responsible for reporting the metric and doing something about it when it's off track. There's a big difference in being responsible for and doing it. I just want to make sure we clarify that. So that gives you a really good idea of scorecard and what that looks like. I mentioned earlier that we have firm level scorecard, department, and then individual. And so at a firm level, it's going to show us how close we are to achieving the firm's rocks for that quarter. That's things like revenue. And then I also mentioned we have individual employee scorecards. An employee will also have a revenue amount on their scorecard. And what happens at the end of the quarter is all of these employees' revenue rolls up to achieve our firm level revenue. So it's important to track different scorecards so that you can see if you're going to be on track or off track. And then what's even more important is once that number is off track, that has now given you the red light to say, hey, we need to look at this. There's an issue here. We're not meeting this metric. And if this goes on for too many weeks, we're not going to meet our quarterly goal, and then we're not going to meet our annual goal. So the benefit of that scorecard is saying, oh, let's pause, let's fix what's not working, and then keep going. Whereas if you're just tracking this on an annual level, you're going to be all the way at the end of the year, and then you're going to realize, oh crap, we're not going to hit our goals. Whereas the way that we are operating at Aligned is it's telling us much more timely so we can make adjustments to our operations so we are more successful. That is really the beauty of scorecards is looking at off track way sooner than you would if you're just tracking this annually. The next part of EOS is really where it comes to life, and that's in the meetings. This is where most listeners are going to feel the difference. EOS isn't just planning, it's how the meetings are ran. And so I'm going to walk you through different types of meetings that we have and then what they look like. So again, you can see tactically how this is applied to business and maybe get an idea of how it could help your business. So we have several different types of meetings at Aligned. We have a leadership meeting, which is weekly, production meeting weekly, and a sales and marketing meeting, which is weekly. All of these meetings really follow the same agenda structure, and let's walk through what that is. It starts with the scorecard. That's what we just talked about. We're looking to see, are we on track? Are we off track? And then if anything is off track, it's going to be set aside and it becomes an issue. Then we go through to-dos, and that's just looking at clear task of who was assigned what and what they were supposed to do by what due date. And we review this every single week. There's no guessing, there's no chasing, there's no saying, I didn't know about that, no one told me. It is clear. That is what we want, is clarity. Next on the agenda list is our issues list. This is like a parking lot for real problems. I say parking lot because what that means for me is sometimes we can't deal with our issues or problems in our business as the week's going on or the month's going on, and we want to put them into a parking lot for when we're ready, we will come to them. They're going to park there until we solve them. So that's exactly what happens. They park on our issues list until it is solved. That way, we're not ignoring it and we're not saying we'll come back to this later. We're coming back to it routinely every single week to see, have we fixed the issue? This is probably what helps us grow. I want to say grow smoothly, but I'm not sure that's a thing, honestly. This is definitely what helps us grow, though, because we're not ignoring things. We're putting them on a list to address them timely and regularly so that small issues don't become really large issues and then become a really big problem. What I want you to see in this meeting agenda component is leadership isn't doing all of the work. What we're doing is identifying the issue and we're assigning resolution and then we're holding our team accountable. And so I think part of growing is getting out of that mindset that you have to do everything. That is not true. You just need an operating system that will help you give accountability and give clarity and give structure so that your team can run with these things and fix issues for you. Let me just kind of walk through an example. Let's say that our new client target is off And that means that our sales are off target. Leadership's going to identify what's going on that we're not getting the new client leads that we thought we were going to. We're not meeting those targets. And then we're going to try and come up with a solution to fix that. That might be like a process change, a price change, a new marketing campaign, new sales tactics. But our leadership team is not going to execute on those. We're going to push that to our sales and marketing team, and they are going to execute on them. And so you can see how that works very quickly. We know week one if we're off target. And sometimes we're off target as far as like we're under, and then the next week we're way over. And so it is like a blended trend. But if we get to where we're 2 weeks off target, we're having a conversation and we're identifying what is going on. What do we need to change? Because that's a reality of business these days of things change so quickly that if you're not on the front end of tracking your metrics, you're going to be behind. And so my goal as the CEO is to keep this front and center for our team and to tweak our execution so that we're hitting our goals. That's the ultimate goal here. So I've told you a lot about how EOS works, and I want to talk a little bit about how this has changed how I lead. Personally, before using EOS, things lived in my head or post-it notes. I gave that example earlier because I love a good post-it note, especially different colors. But the problem is you don't know where you put them, or you lost one, or you threw one in the trash and you shouldn't have. And things just felt chaotic. Definitely a type A personality. I like a good list. I like things in order. So EOS helps me do that. Before using a system, I just felt really reactive. That's probably the best way or best example or analogy to give is that I was constantly just reacting to new problems that were coming up. And honestly, that gets really exhausting. After EOS, I had fewer surprises. I knew what was coming down the pipeline. I had very clear priorities. We talked earlier about strategies, knowing what to say no to, knowing what to say yes to. And as a business owner, you're going to get opportunities not handed to you, but just come to you. And you're not going to know what to say yes to and what to say no to unless you have very clear priorities of what you're trying to achieve. Your life and your business is just going to grow easier or scale smoother when you know what to say yes to. The system's just going to let you get out of the weeds and feel like you're losing control. It's definitely a reason that I've been able to grow into a seven-figure firm without all of the chaos. I know what's going to happen each week, each month, each quarter. And as a business owner, I like to know what is coming. And EOS has helped me by giving me that clarity around the business. Because to be quite honest, growth without structure is burnout. And I want you guys to avoid that. I've definitely been through that. And you're always going to have, I think, seasons of feeling burned out because sometimes seasons are hard and some seasons are not as hard. But EOS is going to give you the structure, the clarity, and the cadence. I know I keep saying that, but it truly will give you that so hopefully you can start to avoid some of the burnout, or maybe it's not as much. Maybe it doesn't happen as often. And like I said earlier, you don't need a full team to start this process. You really just need a vision, break it down into quarterly priorities, a way to track your progress, and then a rhythm to review and adjust. I hope that I've encouraged you today to implement something different in your business because remember, if you're trying to achieve something more, something bigger, you have to do something different. What I would do if you don't have any type of operating system is pick up the book Traction. If you're local to me, swing by my office. I always have extra copies of this book because I love it so much and I will give you one. And then really just ask yourself, do I have clarity or am I just really busy? If this is something that you want to implement more in your business, I would love to have a conversation with you and talk to you about how Aligned CPA can be your resource and your partner in growing your business. We want to make sure you have the right metrics and you have accurate information in order to be able to track them to know when you're on and off target. Reach out by shooting me a DM, shoot us an email at info@AlignedCPA, and we would be happy to have a conversation with you.
Thanks for tuning in to Upleveling. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more entrepreneurs like you discover the show. Let's keep the conversation going. Connect with us on social media or visit alignedcpa.com for resources and updates. Until next time, keep leading, optimizing, and upleveling.